Here we go. Morning, morning, monsters. So, today we're going to take a little bit of a change of pace after we did all those lobby design videos, and we're going to go back to an anime review video. I binged this one a bit on the weekend. It's going to be spoiler-free, 100% spoiler-free, because I actually don't think we need to discuss the spoiler stuff to talk about what's interesting about this show. So for those of you who missed it, Levius is a boxing show. It's there we go. Brains. No, that's not at all helpful. There we go. Wow. I painted on the background again like a complete and utter idiot. So what makes this show really interesting to me is it follows a lot of the sort of sport tropes that you will see in a lot of anime these days. I've got to admit, I'm generally not someone who's particularly interested in sports anime, but there was a core premise in this one that kind of got my attention and won me over long enough to fall in love with the characters. So the core premise is, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to bring up the trailer. I'm going to play that with no sound while I talk. So the core premise behind this is they've taken boxing and they've taken steampunk and they've gone, what if we could have steampunk boxing? But they've still got electricity and everything, so how do you justify it? Because steampunk always feels a little bit clunky to me. I think it could be a really interesting genre when properly approached, but too many people forget the punk part of that equation, which is why steampunk, for me, it often feels like a place where people retreat to sort of Victorianism, sort of ideals, sort of comfort, Rule Britannia kind of dialogue. But this show is really interesting because steam isn't the key thing that drives the society, so to speak, but it is a major player. It's a stand-in really for oil in their universe. So there is a war that, before the anime has started, is fought over this key ingredient because hypersteam, as it is called, is interesting in that it has to be mixed with human blood, which immediately is interesting because when it's mixed with human blood, it becomes this it vaporizes instantly, pressurizing chambers really well, but additionally it is also controllable to some extent by the psyche of the individual who the blood and hypersteam has mixed with. And so that's really interesting from a few pointers. It means you can't mass produce this. You can't have zeppelins and machinery. It keeps people very sort of centered in the story, but also without going into the story, it's very obvious when you have this oil substance. It's not actually oil, it's called something water. It's not important. But you have this substance that wars are fought over because it's a precious natural resource, which is interesting of itself. But then additionally, you can't mass produce it, so you've got to keep humans in the center because it has to be mixed with blood. And it can't be mixed with like a dead person's blood or donated blood. It has to be blood pumping through the heart, so to speak. And that keeps things front and center. So what they've basically done is they have built a boxing anime around this with a few tidbits that draw someone like me in, really. And as I say, the thing that pulls you through it is a really fascinating boxing anime and the characters are really, really strong. But the thing that makes it punk is obviously because of this natural equation, as you would say it. Exploitation is an obvious trend, and how people interact with it, it becomes very sort of punk in its genre. Now, the visuals might put some people off initially because it's sort of the Knights of Sidonia Netflix. This is Polygon Pictures, but it's we're going to go very heavy on CG rather than hand drawing. And even though most anime is quite heavy in CG, you just don't notice it. They don't hide it. Like, it's very much a mid-budget production anime. Though having said that, it's a very, very strong anime, and I would strongly recommend it. Though I do want to go read the manga at some point, because the manga's got these beautiful... I feel like the manga really captures something. So I do want to go off and read the manga. It's got this dirtiness. I mean, you immediately see the themes here with the opening of the manga with these steam pipes plugging into the human heart. You can totally see what this show is building up to, and the themes that this show wants to build on. So I'm personally going to buy the manga and have a big old read of it. I look forward to that, but I strongly recommend the anime. Actually, I really had a good fun binging it, and I'm not someone who would normally watch a boxing anime. I'm not someone who is a Rocky fan. I mean, I think everyone enjoyed Rocky, but like, you know, many other people went on to watch all 5, 6, however many Rocky movies there were. And in terms of it being a boxing anime, it is quite formulaic. Like, you're not going to be shocked and surprised. The opening and closing song is potent as fuck. I don't think I can play it on this without getting copy striked, so I'm going to leave it off. But there's a new artist that's come onto the scene that has done the opening. If you go watch the trailer, this trailer that I have muted, just see those beautiful images again. It's very much it's such a potent song. Like, I'm digging it out, and today this is going to be the song that I'm listening to. And separate discussion, like, I will talk about Frozen 2 at some point. Went to saw that the weekend, and I really enjoyed the music in that. And I thought my Monday would be dominated by having that soundtrack on loop, but I mean, it's only 2 songs, so I don't know how long I'll be able to listen to it. But they're belters. They're real belters. And as I say, the artist behind it, she's very mysterious. It reeks of of produced pop star, as in, like, you know, where you get established arrangers and writers and stuff to sort of have a sock puppet facility. But it's just fascinating music. But yeah, I think the anime went for a good style, because I don't think it would have been cost effective to replicate the manga's look, or to do the manga's look justice, because it is this loose line, gritty feel. So for them just to adapt it to something that is cost effective and really doesn't get in the way of telling the stories. I was worried, because the biggest problem with this sort of style is sometimes the faces look a bit dead. And, you know, there's maybe not as much facial expression as you'd want in some scenes, but most of the scenes, they nail it. They nail it enough. I think it's helped by the fact that boxing is one of these genres that is so physical that it works. It really does work. So in terms of this, there we go. In terms of this bit here, as I say, I'm going to grab the manga. I don't think, from what I can tell with a bit of Googling, that there's going to be any more seasons. There is more story after this first season, but it is a satisfying 1-season show. It leaves mysteries at the end, but those mysteries they're not going to drive you to sleepless nights. They might drive you to the manga, like they've driven me to the manga. They might sort of pull you along. But no, I think you'll watch the season, you'll reach the conclusion, and you will be satisfied with that conclusion. I feel like most of the emotional arcs are resolved, and while there's mystery arcs and plot and stuff, I don't think anyone who watches this show is going to be bugged by that. So if you're into anime, or if you're just into science fiction or sports shows, it's a bit of both. As I say, the thing that drew me in was the hypersteam and that whole concept, and I'd love to actually almost run a role-playing campaign or a one-shot or something around it, because it's a really new, interesting take on cyberpunk, steampunk, that actually puts punk back into steampunk, and I feel it's a good premise. It's a very, very solid premise. But emotionally, I felt the arc was complete, the season was complete, and I would have a strong recommend on Levius, because I think you will fall in love with the characters and fall in love with the story and the progression, and it'll pull you through. But yeah, no, that is everything. Well, I just play out the trailer. Any questions before we wrap up the recorded segment for today? Looks cool. Is it boxing with a hint of sci-fi mech arms? It's literally called metal boxing, and this whole concept of hypersteam, as I said, and it is more a boxing anime than it is anything else. But obviously with anime, they can take it to the next level. They can have a lot of heady storylines that don't work in a purely rational world, shall we say. So yeah, no, I would give it a strong recommend for that. But I was drawn in by the science fiction steampunk element. What would you say the defining features of the punk genre? So I've got a friend who gives a whole talk on it, but the very, very short answer of punk is it's a dystopia. It's a warning. It's not a world you should want to live in. It challenges the establishment, and it's basically saying, like most punk media, it's a riotous letter of protest. Gibson was never writing about a world he wanted to live in. He wasn't saying corporation and control and all that is a good thing, and generally the protagonists are fighting against the system or systemic oppression. Cyberpunk and its various definitive genres are more about digging into societal oppression, talking about things like racism, talking about things like economic disparity, more than anything else. The trimmings are just the latest means of oppression. In Levius, it's hypersteam and various ways corporations and countries try to fight for hypersteam. In Gibson, it's the internet and cyberpunk. It's also one of the reasons why, in Snow Crash, it's information theory. It's one of the reasons why in cyberpunk you see so many marginal protagonists. You see so many non-white, just sort of off the edge protagonists. So even in Levius, he is an orphan and disabled. Like, he did not choose to have his arm installed, and I don't think that's a big spoiler or anything. That's pretty obvious quite early on. But so there's a lot of caveats there, and he is definitely from a lower socioeconomic bracket. But that's also a common theme with boxing films, and I think it's one of the reasons why, even though boxing is very toxic in a lot of ways of how it puts people forward and damages people, one of the reasons it's maintained so popular for so long is it's been a really positive force in some communities. The boxing gym in America has been a societal ladder, so it's interesting. As I say, I'm not a huge boxing person, but I find it fascinating. So with that, we are going to conclude the review of Levius. It's a strong, please go watch it if you're into anime, or if you think you could enjoy a boxing thing, or if you like steampunk. It's definitely, I would say, a strong intro to steampunk. But the thing that carried me through to the season finale, and the thing that carried me through the show, was the characters and the story. I was very much hooked onto that. The rest was really just a hook to get me into it. And it's on Netflix, so if you have it, no brainer. With that, monsters, we're going to say goodbye to those of you on YouTube. You would have noticed a new Dreams tutorial has dropped. I'll be doing more of those, and we always talk about stuff in the mornings on Twitch, so swing on by.